All right, so today we're going to be adding in the detail screen. So basically make it that whenever we click on any of these rows right here, so if I clicked on this, it would push me to another screen where you can see more information about the restaurant or that inspection. But before we get to that, for this one, we're going to be working with the simulator in dark mode. So to do that, the first thing you have to do is just click on your simulator and then say Command Shift A, and you'll get switched to dark mode. And now we're ready. So let's minimize that for a second, and then we're going to maximize Xcode. And the first thing we're going to do is go to content view here. And to add a detail screen, all we have to pretty much do is basically for our row, we have to wrap this inside a navigation link. So what we can do right now is just Command X this for a second. And then we're going to type in navigation link. And it's a bunch of them, so make sure you pick the one that says navigation link, destination, and a label, this one right here. And then for the label, we're just going to pretty much paste back what we had before, so Command V. And then for the destination, this will be like the new screen that we want to go to. So for now, let's just put some text in here. And just to make sure that we're going to the right screen, for the text, we're going to make it that in the new screen, it's going to say something like inspection DBA, so the name of the business. And now if we run it, and let's just give it a second, minimize this so we can see it. You'll see that the first thing you see like a minor error here, like a little error here. That basically gives you an idea that, well, you can go somewhere else if you click this. And if we click this, you see we go to the screen, another screen that basically just shows the business name. Now we don't just want it to show the name. We actually want it to show is some more stuff from the API that we have here. So let's build it out and let's just start building out. So let's just start building out our detail view for this. So instead of just doing text right here, we'll leave this for now, but we're going to jump over. Let's maximize Xcode. And we're going to jump over to our project here. And we're going to start by creating a new folder. We're going to call this detail view. And then we're going to hit Command N to open up this real quick. And then we're going to pick a SwiftUI view. Then we'll hit next. And for this, you might have guessed it, but we're just going to call this our detail view. And now here, we're going to just copy the name for this detail view, jump back to our content view just to check it out, test it out real quick. I'm just going to paste this here, detail view. And if we run this, basically what's going to happen, we're going to see our detail view. And the only thing it's going to be showing right now is just some text that says hello world. So let's run this just to make sure everything is working as expected. And then if we click this, we see the hello world. But it's the same thing for each of them, which is not what we want. We want it to be for each business that we click on. So let's stop this for a second. And now we're going to start building out our detail view. So inside our detail view here, the first thing we're going to do is instead of using a VStack, we're going to use a different form, or basically a form, a different view. So type in form here. And the thing about form, it gives you that, like, you know, like how settings look with those sections for inside the screen. We're going to use that to kind of build out our UI. And UI just means user interface, pretty much just how the app looks. So while inside our form, the first thing we're going to type in is section. And we can actually open up our canvas so you can see this as we do it. And then if you don't see a canvas right away, just hit that reload button, or the preview might be paused. And then we're just going to continue typing in section as we were. And you're going to see a bunch of them. The first one, let's go with this one that takes a title and some type of content. So we'll hit that. And then for the title, the first thing we're going to say is say location. And then for content, just hit enter in here. And then the previews, if the preview still isn't loading, it might just be because you need to update some more stuff in your view. So let's just remove this code block here. And for now, we'll just type in text and just say in here, we'll just say NYC. And now you'll see the preview loading. Give it a second. And now we'll see basically how this detail screen is going to basically look. So now let's see if we can actually add in some more meaningful information over here. So what's some of the first things that we might want to add is basically like the address, the street, so forth. If we're not sure, let's just jump back to our API here. Now maximize this so we can see this better. And I'll zoom into so we can see some more. So right now, one of the first things is that we could definitely add in street, we could add in the zip code, but we might need to update our model to handle that. And we could add in what else? A street, zip code, and probably borough. So the two additional things that we're going to add in are borough and zip code. We already have street. So, but first, let's jump back to Xcode. And since we already have street, let's see if we can just have street show to make sure that everything is working. As well, let's see if we can add like some type of title up here so that we can show which restaurant we're actually looking at. So to do that, you might have remembered that all we have to do is just do that navigation title. And then pretty much in here, you put the name of the business. Now, right now, we don't have access to the inspection, like each inspection. To do that, we have to introduce that to our view over here, which is detail view. So let's just press enter and go down some more. And then we're going to say let inspection. And then remember the name of our inspection is inspection, health inspection model. And now we have access to it in our view temporarily. We are going to have to actually pass it over from the list, but I'll show you how to do that. It's not easy. So for inspection, let's just copy this. And then for navigation title, remember we want it to be the name of the business, so we'll say DBA. And then for here, we have New York City here, but we really want to show street. So let's just put street here. Now, you're not going to see it show in the preview. You're actually going to see this error here. And the reason for that is, oh, let me scroll down some more. Yeah, but the reason for that is, I could zoom in some more so you can see this better. Yeah. So the reason for that is because we said that every detail view in our app requires this inspection model. But in our detail view, in our preview here, so anything inside this preview is what we show in our canvas over here, preview. So we have to update our detail view which is in our preview to actually use the inspection model. So let's just type it in. So say inspection. And then for this, we could just say inspection model. And we're just gonna put some data in here. So we could put some like food business, simple. And then for the street, let's just put 1, 2, 3 Hot Street. And then for the description, our cuisine description, we could just say American food. And then for the violation description, we could say something like food kept at wrong temperature. And then for this portion here, it's requiring a date type, but we could just hit that, and then like it will just give us some basic date if you just put distant future. So now the simulator won't be complaining anymore once it's done loading this preview. And you actually, one thing that you might not see though, is the actual inspection title here, is actual navigation title, the DBA. So it's still complaining, and that's because inside our main view, we actually need to update that as well. So let's just jump back to content view here. And you see how it has this error here. Let's just hit this, and it's going to be the same thing that we did. But we don't have to create a fake inspection because we already have access to our inspections, remember? So we're just going to pass this inspection inside here. And now that's loading. You can see the preview over here is even loading too. Nice. And then if we click this, we get a preview of what app is going to kind of look like. So right now, when you click on each row in the detail view, you're just seeing this Northern Boulevard. You don't know if this is a street. You don't know what exactly this is. Not the best experience. So to fix this, instead of using, let's jump back to our detail view. So let's go here. So instead of just doing some type of text here, right? What we're gonna do is a different view called labeled content. Oh, labeled content. And this takes two values. So it takes some type of string and like basically two types of string, but there are multiple different versions of this. But we're picking this one that takes a localized string key and then some value that's a string. Just hit enter here, and you're gonna see localized string key. Don't really worry about that. We'll explain that later on. And then just hit parentheses, and then in here we're gonna pass in pretty much street, like basically what we're gonna show on the right side. So let me just show you so it makes more sense. So I'll type in street here, and then over here I'm gonna type in inspection.street. And now when it loads, you see like now we know what it basically means. So if we jump back to our content view screen, and then if we click on this, you'll see that now we see that for location, we see that we know what the street is, it's Northern Boulevard, etc. So let's do it for the other two. I remember we said we wanted to maximize this. Yeah, remember we said we wanted to introduce borough and zip code too. So let's add those to our models, because right now we don't have access to those because we didn't add them in our model to get access to them. So let's jump back to Xcode, and then we'll go to our model right here. And then right below here, I'll just type in let borough. That's how they spelled it. And if you're not sure, what you can simply do is just minimize Xcode. And then when you minimize Xcode, you just open up your Safari browser or whatever browser you're using. Minimize that right next to it. And you can see I can just be like, all right, so it's borough, and we know it's a string value, so that's good. And we have a zip code, and we know that's also a string value. So let's just type that in. Zip code. You can also copy and paste it too, but yeah, up to you. So let's just give this a run. I remember sometimes some of the values in some of these old data sets aren't available for every record. So we might see something where it says we're unable to decode or something like that. So let's run it and see what we get. Oh, okay, we have to update our preview too, since we just added 2 new values. So let's do that. So I think the first one we added was borough. So let's just add something like Manhattan. And then we added zip code. Let's just add something in here. Let's call it 1001. And now our preview can load since we updated the model that it needs. So basically everywhere that you're creating a model like this, usually in the previews or for like some type of mock data, since we added some new parameters that are not optional, we have to update them. Let's just run it again. And you see we get the error that says the data couldn't be read because it's missing. So more than likely what's happening is that there are some records that don't have a zip code or might not have a borough parameter. So we did this before in the previous video, but if you're not sure, all we have to do is probably make some of these values optional. So we can try and do this one. Let's make borough optional, and let's make zip code optional. And then if we rerun this, you see that we don't get an error anymore and we can see our data. So now let's go back. Let's stop this, stop the simulator, and let's maximize again. And then we're going to go to our detail view. And then inside here, since we have our preview running here, we can just minimize this portion. And then we'll reload our preview here just by clicking that refresh button. And now the next thing that we want to do is basically, so we have street. Let's see if we can add other 2 below it. So we'll hit this, and inside the same section, because remember we're inside the location section, so it makes sense to put it in here. So we'll say again, labeled content. Labeled content. Use the one that takes 2 strings. And then for this value, we can make this be zip code. And then for the value, we'll pass in inspection.zip code. And because this is an optional value, remember this is the lazy way, we can do it like this. If you want to, we can go the route where basically we do the if let, but I'll leave that up to you, since like what, and if you're not sure how we did it, just check out the other video and we show you. And now let's go to another one, which is we're going to add in the borough. So we'll say labeled content. Go back to the one that takes us localized string key and some type of string. And see, hit enter. And then here we'll just say borough. Now they spelled it BRO for the parameters in the model, but I'm pretty sure it's BROUGH. And then for value, I would say inspection, and then I'll just say borrow. And we'll go the lazy way for this and just say this. And now you see we immediately have a much more better list. We on the restaurant, we can see the street, the zip code, and the borough. So this is looking pretty good. Let's see how it looks in the actual simulator though. So let's just give it another run. Now, one thing with programming, you're gonna realize that you run your code a lot just to make sure everything is working as expected. So let's hit this, and we see the street, the zip code, the borough. Right now, we're seeing a lot of sweet cakes. Okay, I found another one. Let's click this one, and we see the different information. So another section I'm thinking that we could add. Also, you notice how this title is pretty much cut off. We could actually make this pretty much like the smaller size, kind of like what we did here. But let's see how this one looks. This one looks pretty good. So I'll leave that one up to you if you want to make it the smaller navigation title or use a big title like this. But just as a reminder, I'll show you how to do that. So inside our detail view right here, right? What you need to do is go down and scroll up. At the end of our form under navigation title, you can just say dot navigation bar title display mode. You have to add that modifier and then just hit inline and one. And then if you run this, and you click on any of them, you'll see that now the title, it has this inline style. So I'll leave that up to you, which one you prefer to use. For me, I'm going to stick with the large title. So I'll go back to maximize Xcode. And I'm going to go back here and I'm going to change it from inline to large. But that's the one I prefer. But one thing you're going to notice is that whenever, even though we're seeing the title when we run the simulator itself, we don't see it inside our preview. And you might be wondering, like, you might think that something's wrong. The reason for that is inside our preview here, you can see that all we're using is detail view. It's not in a navigation stack. In our actual code though, we have our main view, our content view inside a navigation stack. So every view that it goes to after this is pretty much inside this navigation stack. So a quick way to fix it so you can see it inside the previews too is to pretty much just wrap your detail view inside a navigation stack. So let's just do that. I'll say that navigation stack, curly braces, and then we're going on here, curly braces. I will give our time some time to load, and now you see it inside our preview. So that's looking good. So now the next thing that we're going to do is look if what other data that we could possibly want to show in this detail screen. So one of the top things I'd want to see right away is probably the grade. Like I'd probably want to see that right before the location. But again, if we look at our model, you notice that we weren't getting the grade value. So to do that, you might have guessed it already. But what we have to do is go back to our API in the browser here. And we have to find out what the name of the parameter is to get the grade and probably the score. So in this first record, you can see that, well, it's not here. And that obviously means that they're going to be optional values. But if we do a find and we type in grade, you can see that there's some values that do have it. So let's see what it is. So they're pretty much just called the same thing, grade and score, and they're both string values. So let's minimize that. And then we go back to our model. And then right under zip code, we'll type in grade, make this a string. As we said, it's not there for every record, so it's an optional value. And then under there, we'll type in score. Again, that's an optional value too. So now, as you know, we have to jump back to wherever we were using this model in our preview and pretty much update it. Because right now, if we maximize this and try to run, we're probably going to get an error. See, right here. And it says the error is inside our detail view, which is where we were expecting. So let's add those new values that we added. So, and we're doing this so that we can see this in our preview faster. If you don't care about seeing it in our preview, you can literally just comment out all this whole section and not have to do this each time. So let's type in grade here. And then for grade, let's just make it A. And then for other value of score, let's make, actually, instead of making it A, let's just make it C. And then for score, let's give it 69, 65. Yeah. And now when we reload our preview by pressing that, you're gonna see that now we can build it, but we're not actually using this inside our code yet. So let's just add that in. So what we're gonna do now is add another section for pretty much score or grading. So let's do something like section. And again, go to the one that takes a title and a, oh yeah, not title, but go to one that takes a title and some type of content, which is this one right here. And then we're gonna call score. And then in content, just hit enter. And again, we're gonna do a similar way. So we'll just say labeled content. Look for the one that takes a localized string key and a string. And then inside here for localized string key, we'll make this one be the grade. And then for value, we'll just say inspection.grade. Grade. See. So again, this is the lazy way of doing it like this. I did say, if you want to see the better way, just jump to the other video, the previous video. But I'm gonna give you one hint here, and I'll just hook up this one for you. So to make it that it's not an optional value like what we're doing here, what we can do is say something like if let. I will just say grade. And then you see Xcode kind of helping us out, saying, oh, you're going to want to do something like this. So yeah, the grade is equal to inspection.grade. So basically we're checking if there is a value inside inspection.grade, like there is a value, then put it inside grade. And then if it really is a value there, then I want you to pretty much use it here. So let's just copy this. Let's just say Command X and then just paste it back here. And then instead of using inspection.grade here, since we already checked if the value exists, we can just type in grade, which is this value. So now if there isn't a grade value, we just won't see this section. All right. And now for the other one, let's do something like this. So we'll say labeled content. Go down to the one that takes a localized string key and a value. Then inside here, I'm going to make this be score. And then for the value, I'll just say inspection.score. We're going to go the lazy way again. If you want to go the better way, which is the way I recommend, then do a if let and check if the value actually exists. All right. So now our view looks much better. It's looking more like this. I think the only couple of things that we probably need to do is basically add whatever the violation is and probably a few more things. So let's go down and add that below here. So let's scroll up some more. And then we'll create one more section. And then we'll say this one again. And then we'll say violation. And then inside here, we'll hit enter. And then basically in here, we can say something like, again, labeled content. One that takes a localized string key and a value as usual. And then in here, we're just going to say violation. And then for this, we know we have it. So it's an inspection that violation description. This is a optional value too. So we'll just put this here. And now we see this looking much more cleaner. The last one we're going to add, and then we're going to jump to actually using something else. A nice little bonus is basically the date, because that's something you're going to definitely want to know. Like, when was this inspection? Was this a recent thing? Was this an old thing? And we saw in the records that we have some stuff from 1900. So we want to know how recent this is. The last section we're going to add here is pretty much one for date. So let's just put this in and just a date. I call this inspection date. Let's be some more specific. And then in here, we're going to say, again, you might have guessed it, labeled content. Go with the one that takes a string. So this is the one that takes just a string. I'm just going to show you both of them. So we can just, instead of doing localized string key, we just do a regular string. And in here, we're just gonna say, literally just say date. And then for here, where it's requesting a string, we can say inspection. And remember, our date is actually a date type. So we can't just put this because remember, value is expecting a string. So one way how you can convert it to a string is by saying another dot and then typing in formatted, and then go down to the part that uses the formatted with a date and a time, and there's a date here, and then for this hit that, and then I'll go to the one that's abbreviated, and then for time I'll hit that again, and then I'll go down to omitted, and then if we give it some time, you'll see that it now loads our date right there at the bottom. So now let's give this a run just to see how the app looks when it's showing more of this information in the detail screen. So if we hit this, we see the first thing, the grade, the score, the location, the violation, and the date that this happened. And it's different for each one. So I Love Pizza has a different one versus that. So one thing that we could also do is basically add like some type of phone number, so that make it that the user can actually, once they see this, they can actually call our support. And there actually is so if we go back to our API, we see that we have a phone parameter here. And obviously this wasn't in some of the records. So again, this is an optional value. Also to note that this is a string as well, not an integer. So let's minimize this. And then we're going to jump back to our model. And then we're going to go down here. Let's scroll up. And then right underscore, we'll just say let phone. Make this a string value. And then we know our preview is going to complain about this inside our detail view. So let's just add that in. If you don't want to type it out, you could just hit the red here and then hit fix. And then for the number, let's just type this in. So we'll say something like 1, 2, 3. And then no. Just writing some stuff. And then what we're going to do that's going to be a little bit different. We're actually not going to make a labeled section for this. What we're going to do, let's load our preview. Then stop the app and just load the preview. We're going to add a way, like a button to the top right of this, so that the user can basically click this and they initiate a call. So let's do that. So to do that, we have to, right below our dot navigation bar title display mode, we're going to add a new modifier to this. And this modifier is going to be called dot toolbar. And then inside toolbar, we're just going to type in button. I think this is our first time using a button, so get ready. So for the button, we have a label, and we have a label here, and then some an action part for the button. So for label, what we're going to do here is just type in image, and then we're going to type the system name image. So when you use image with a system name, it's basically making it that you can use any of the images that Apple made already. So Apple made a bunch of images that you can use. So I'll show you in a second some of them. Or we can type in something like phone.fill. And then let's get rid of this code block. So there's no action. So when you press it, nothing's gonna happen. But if we go to our simulator, we see this phone button right here, and you can kind of click on it like a real button because it's a button. And now you must be wondering still, what is this toolbar modifier? So toolbar is basically how you can add like buttons or text to the top right part of your view. So right up there. Okay. So now, like I was mentioning, the image system name is a way how we can use images made by Apple. So to see some of those images and know which ones are available and what name to call them, you have to get something called SF symbols, which is this right here. So I'll open this. And then these are all, let me maximize this, guys, a bunch. So these are all the categories of images that Apple offers. I don't think I can zoom in here, so I can't zoom in here. And you can pick from whichever one you want. And all you have to do is just copy the name. So let's search up here for phone, see what other phone images we might have. And you see, if you go with this one, it will just be a plain phone like that. We're going with this one that's like phone fill. Or we could switch to this one that's like phone circle or phone circle.fill. I feel like I kind of like phone circle.fill more. So let's just right click or double tap and then we'll say copy name. And then let's minimize this. And then we'll jump back to Xcode, maximize Xcode. And then instead of saying just phone fill, we're going to paste back that image's name. And now you see the image changes to this icon right here. So I think this is kind of small. So let's just increase the size. So the first thing you need to do to resize the image is add this modifier called resizable. And then give it a second. And you see kind of shifted a bit, but it's not the size that we want. So let's change it by adding something called a frame modifier. And that way we can specify how wide we want it and how high the height. So let's say width, height. And then for this, we're going to say something like 40 width, 40 height. And now you see the image kind of pops more. It's more easier to see. But if we click on it still, nothing happens. So really what we want to do inside here is basically make it that we can use that phone number that we got and use it inside to actually make a call. So the first thing we need to do that is add something called, say, let. So we're going to create a variable to do this. So we're going to say something like let, and then we're going to say keyword, telephone key, right? And then we're going to just make this be that. And then we're going to go here and then we're going to say let formatted telephone equal telephone key plus pretty much what we have, which is inspection dot phone. And again, this is the optional value, so we can do this. And now so now we're basically just combining them. What is it complaining about here? Same value. So it's basically saying that like you're trying to make this a regular string, but I'm actually an optional value. So what we can do instead is get rid of this, and then in here we're just gonna say do this. So if we don't have this value, just use an empty string. And if we're using an empty string, that's pretty much saying that we're not gonna be able to make a phone call. So now what we're gonna do here is basically convert our formatted telephone to a URL. Now it sounds weird, but it will make sense in a second. So to do this, we're gonna say something like guard let, and then we're gonna say telephone number, or you can put URL here, up to you. And then just say URL string. And then for the string portion, we're just going to type in formatted telephone. And then we're going to say else return, right? And now here, what we're going to do is use something called a UI application. And then it's a UI application that's shared, that open URL. So this one right here. And we're going to pass in telephone number URL here. Now, what's going to happen is whenever you click this button here, this action is going to be performed. So we're going to use the telephone key, take the phone from the inspection, add this portion onto it. So basically combining these values, so the telephone key with the actual phone number, and then we're going to convert it to a URL so that we can pass it to this UI application that's shared, that open URL. And that's how you make pretty much phone calls from your simulator. Well, for your phone, for your app. So if we run this now just on the simulator, this won't work. So we could click here, and then we could click it, and you'll see that we see this error that says fail to open, etc. The reason we're seeing this here, let me just up a bit more. Yeah, so the reason we're seeing this here is, if you can see that. So the reason we're seeing this here is because we're trying to make a phone call from a simulator. It doesn't work like that. To actually make a phone call for our app, we have to switch to using our regular device. So make sure you click. So to do that, we have to go up here And then instead of using our simulator, make sure you probably have like some type of device connected. And what you can do is just select this. So right now I'm going to switch to iPhone Blue, which is my device that I have. And then when I run this, so you might see an error that's saying that basically signing for health inspection requires a development team. So to run your simulator or run your app on like a real device, you have to make sure that you have a team enabled. So I will do this and I'll just switch to doing this. I'm gonna blur this out because I don't want to share all my information with you. And then if we run this again, when our app builds, I push this to my device. Yeah, so when it builds and it pushes to my device, I can just click on any of these. So I'll click on this one. And then up here, if I click on the phone, you'll see it pops up and it shows that pretty much that we can, that regular expected calling feature. So let's try a different one and just click on this one. And if we click on the phone button, you see it pops up and it offers us our ability to call. So that's looking good. Now, if we, let's just stop this for a second. Let's maximize. And now let's switch back to our simulator. So go up here and I'll switch back to iPhone 16 Pro. And now this is looking much better right now. So let's run it one more time just to make sure that we're still seeing everything fine on our simulator. And if we scroll or we click on anything, now we're seeing everything as expected still. So that's basically how we create a detail screen for our app. So instead of just being one place just on the main screen, just a list, we can make it that we can navigate to another screen and then show more detailed information about that screen. So that's how we do it for this one. Now let's look at it just to make sure we are doing this in dark mode, but let's just make sure everything looks good in light mode too. So to do that, again, Command Shift A, click on it, Command Shift A, and then let's back out and let's just try clicking on something. And we know that everything still looks good. So let's just switch back to our favorite dark mode. All right. And now this is looking good. So we have a great simulator that we can show a next screen, a next detail screen with more information. So one thing that we could do to make this even better, to maximize this, is actually introduce a view model to our app, to our detail screen. So right now, what we're doing is, you see all this logic that we're doing inside the button right here. We shouldn't be doing this inside the view. We should make sure that we separate this type of stuff inside and put this inside the view. The view shouldn't be worried about formatting the telephone number and converting it to a URL and actually using all of this stuff right here. It shouldn't need to worry about that. So what we're going to do is create a view model for detail view. So let's jump back to this folder. And then we're going to say Command N. And then instead of saying a SwiftUI view, we're going to click on a Swift file. And then we're just going to say detail view model. And then inside here, we're just going to make it a class. And then we're just going to call it detail view model. And we don't need to make this an observable object right now since it's not really needed. But one thing that we do need to do is introduce this detail view model to our view so that we can use it inside our detail view. So to do that, we have to jump back to our detail view. And we're going to scroll up here and above right here, let's just make it that we have something called let view model. And we'll just call this detail view model. And now you're going to see the preview complaining, and you're actually going to see it complaining as well in the content view. So one thing I would suggest that we do right now, you see this first health inspection model that we have here? We're actually just going to copy it. Let's just cut it actually. Command X. And then you're going to see it asks for pretty much the view model. So let's just type in view model here first. And then we're just going to say view model and just put that here. So it's still asking for this health inspection model because we have it here as a parameter. When dealing with the model and the view model, it's best if you make it that the view model has control over the model. So this is what we're going to do. Instead of having this here, instead of having the inspection model here, we're going to get rid of it from here. And we're going to make it that it's required in the view model instead. So in here, we'll say let inspection. We're going to say inspection model, health inspection model. And now we have to update our initializer, and you can just use autocomplete by that just comes with just typing in it first. And now if we go back to our preview, go back to our detail view, you're gonna see all these errors because it doesn't know what inspection is. We got rid of it, but I'm gonna show you how we can fix that in a second. Also, you can see in our preview, it's saying that detail view doesn't require an inspection parameter, so we can get rid of this. And now it says that detail view model requires an inspection parameter. So we can hit this, fix, and then remember we still have that previous inspection model copied. So just paste this here, just fill that out. And now what we can do to fix all these other errors is, you notice where it says inspection, it doesn't know what inspection is. I remember it's inside our view model now, this right here. So all we have to do is everywhere where we have inspection, we're just going to type view model in front of it. Yeah. And we can do it like that. Now we're good. And then just pretty much just do this and just plop view model dot right in front of it. You can see it go. And then one more right here. Oh no, one last one right here. This one is gonna be moved though, but for now this is fine. And now you see all our errors are gone. So there's one more issue that's happening because remember we actually use the detail view inside our content view. And because we changed the requirement for this, it's gonna be complaining here. So it doesn't just take an inspection model anymore, it actually takes a view model. So I have to put the view model there, hit that, and then remember our view model now has control over that inspection model. So we just paste in inspection, which is this from here. So now if we run this, we will see the same exact experience. And we can still go over to the next view, and it's still looking fine, just like we expected. So if we maximize our Xcode again, and then if we go to our detail view, you'll notice that pretty much what's happening is we're still handling the work, like I was mentioning, to actually create the URL for the telephone number so we can make a phone call inside our detail view. I remember when I said we don't want to do that, we want to be handling that inside our view model. The view shouldn't be worried about doing work like this. Okay? So any type of formatting or anything like that, the view shouldn't be concerned about that. So what we can do is let's just copy all of this right here. Command X and cut it. And then we're going to go over back to our detail view model. And then we're going to create a function called make phone call. All right. And then we're just going to paste it in here. Now you're going to see a couple errors because, well, you don't need view model here. So you can just get rid of that. But we do have access to our inspection model. So now you don't see those errors. We do see an error here where our view model doesn't know what UI application is. And you see it kind of gives us a hint that maybe you need to import something called UI kit. Let's just import that real quick. And now we have all those errors gone. And now what we can do is if we jump back to detail view, all we have to do here is just say view model dot make phone call. And now as you see, our view doesn't have to worry about doing all that complex logic again. It's pretty much just handled in here. So now we can jump back to our view model again. And if we look at this, we have all this information kind of just isolated, which is looking much, much better. One thing that I would like if we could do is actually You see even this portion here, we could separate this into a different function to make it that when we write unit tests, which is what we'll do in the next video, we can actually check that the number is being created or formatted properly. So let's just create one more function, and we're gonna call this pretty much func for our, let's just call it create phone number URL. Let's call it this. Right? And then we're gonna pretty much just copy this portion here. And let's grab all of this. Grab this. Just cut it. We could just make it create phone number. So just doing URL, and then we'll just handle URL here. And then inside here now, since we have all this work, all we have to do is inside the part where it says pretty much passing in like the string, we can just pass in create phone number. But later, when we decide to write tests, we can actually check to see if this is working. All right, so I forgot to return this, so let's just add this. So we'll say return, and we'll have it return formatted telephone. And let's update our function signature so that it returns a string. And now all the errors are gone, and we have two functions, one that actually makes the phone call, and then another that pretty much creates the phone number URL. If you want to take it another step further, you could actually make this portion that converts the string, phone number string, to a URL inside a different function. But we might do that, but I'll leave that for the unit test video when we're making certain changes. But for now, let's just run this again. And then if we load our app and we click on any of them, we can see now that we can click the phone to make phone calls. You have to run this on your real device, and everything is working as expected. And now our app is handling is using the MVVM architecture, which is model view model correctly, and we don't have any extra logic being done inside our view right here. So this is looking really good. So in the next one, as I said, we're going to work on creating unit tests to really test that our logic for our app is working as expected. So again, if you like this, just definitely like, comment, and share. And again, remember the motto: anyone can learn anything with time, practice, and failures. Yeah.